Hey everyone, welcome back. I wanted to have a quick chat with you all about the State of the Union, and more specifically, this moment.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion.
In that moment, President Biden essentially manipulated the Republican Party into breaching the decorum of the State of the Union and interrupting his speech with a back-and-forth shouting match. And that is exactly what he wanted. In fact, the next day, Kevin McCarthy came out and said, yeah, he got us, and specifically said that Biden did goad the Republicans into making a very visceral response. So, in this video, I want to discuss the different components that President Biden and his speechwriters used in order to create this memorable moment. The first question that any speechwriter asks is, what is the goal of this speech that I'm writing? Because that's going to inform what kind of content you put into it. For example, I'm going to give two very different speeches depending on whether I'm giving the best man speech at my best friend's wedding or the eulogy at his funeral. Ever so slightly different tones. But in this instance, we are talking about the State of the Union. The State of the Union is a speech that presidents make to fulfill their requirement in the Constitution that they, at least once a year, report to Congress on the State of the Union. And over time, this has evolved to become a nationally broadcast speech by the president where they can tout their achievements and lay out their agenda for the rest of the year. But let's face it, generally these speeches are pretty unremarkable, and most people don't remember what was said in the last one. Certainly I don't. So, what is the goal of this speech? Obviously, we want to do all those things I just mentioned, but for Joe Biden, who's been suffering a little bit in the polls and is getting ready to launch his re-election campaign, he has a secondary goal. He wants to create one memorable moment, something that's going to carry into the news cycle for a couple of days, and that's really going to paint him in a positive light, and if he can manage it, paint the Republican Party in a negative light so as to help his re-election chances as things proceed. However, a memorable moment doesn't mean a whole lot if there's no audience to receive it. So the question is, who is that audience? And you might think, well, it's obvious, it's the American people. This is a nationally broadcast speech during prime time. There's going to be a ton of different people tuning in. And while that's true, it's not really the audience Biden is focused on. Remember, his goal is launching his re-election campaign for 2024, so he doesn't need the entire American population to win that election. So the people he's likely to focus on are moderates, independents, and Democratic primary voters. So what are those three groups looking for in a memorable moment? Well, it would very much help if he is defending a popular position. It can be seen as something where the country is unified in an opinion about something, so if Biden is seen as promoting that and defending it, that's going to help. It's also going to help if he can be shown to be in control of the room, as especially on the right, we have the nickname Sleepy Joe. There's been all kinds of assaults on his mental acuity. So if he can get up there, really deliver that moment, and seem in control of this room full of a lot of people who don't agree with him and have heckled him in the past, that's going to give him a very good public image of, mental acuity and strength and leadership, which is going to really help bolster his appeal to these voters that he's caring about right now. And, of course, if along the way he can make the Republicans look like they're not serious in government or, that they're not respecting the decorum of the State of the Union, perhaps, well, again, that audience is going to look at Republicans the same way they did in the 2022 midterms and say, well, you might be a little too chaotic for us to let you guys govern, so I think we'll go with the Democrats. Now that we have our goal and our audience in mind, let's start building that memorable moment. So, the easiest place to start is, what policy are we going to defend? What's popular? And as Republicans have been trying to figure out what spending cuts they want in exchange for raising the debt ceiling, Medicare and Social Security did come up in the initial discussions, but that was quickly shot down as those two programs are incredibly popular with voters. And Kevin McCarthy came out and explicitly said that those two things are not on the table. So we can't really defend those based on what Kevin said. However, there is another Republican who just seems to be the gift that keeps on giving for the Democratic Party, and that is Rick Scott of Florida. During the 2022 midterms, he put out a platform for the Republican Party against the wishes of Mitch McConnell, which stated that he wanted to sunset all federal legislation within 5 years. That legislation includes Social Security and Medicare, and that is the language that President Biden used very specifically in his speech, saying that some Republicans want to sunset Medicare and Social Security in 5 years. The reason you set it up that way in the speech is that's what people are going to Google. They're going to say, sunset, Social Security, Medicare, 5 years. What's going to come up? Everything to do with Rick Scott's plan, and it's not really a great plan, so they're probably going to consume media that is beneficial to the Democratic Party and harmful to the Republican Party. Now, that could have been the memorable moment right there. Whenever someone brings up getting rid of Social Security or Medicare, it's always front page news, and that discussion would carry on over a couple of news cycles as different reporters dig into various aspects of Rick Scott's plan that he put out, kind of start going over that again, and overall it would just be bad news for the Republican Party as people dig into these policies, which were unpopular at the time and are still unpopular now. But here's the thing about the State of the Union. It offers a very unique audience beyond the television audience in the fact that all of the members of Congress are actually in the room. And this includes all of the Republicans, and over the past couple of years, Republicans have shown that they do have a propensity to heckle the president and interrupt his speech. And generally speaking, while the Republican base really likes that they do this because they feel that their representatives are standing up to the president and fighting back against the liberals, these more moderate independent voters see it as unprofessional. The State of the Union is a speech about decorum, and there should be some respect for the speech and the office of the presidency when he comes to tell Congress and provide this constitutionally mandated report on the State of the Union. And Kevin McCarthy knows this because in a conference meeting before the speech, he essentially told everyone, keep your mouth shut and behave. This is my first impression in front of the American people. As the speaker, I will be sitting behind Biden. I don't want you all making us look unprofessional as a party by heckling the president. However, by making such a bold statement, Joe Biden didn't really give Republicans any other option but to give that very visceral response that we saw in that clip. Republicans know just as well as Joe Biden that this speech is being broadcast to the wider American public, and if they don't respond right now, people are going to start trying to look up what the president is talking about, and they're going to find what Rick Scott said, and that's not good for them. So, by kind of shattering decorum and starting a shouting match with the president during the State of the Union speech, they could at least show the American public that, hey, we are not going to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are very much opposed to that. That is some Republicans. That is not the majority of us. Which, that is also true. Really, I think the people who are looking to cut Social Security in the Republican Party is probably less than 30. People who are serious about it anyway. So, yeah, they've got their message out there too, but breaking decorum kind of opened the floodgates, and then for the rest of the speech, we did have intermittent heckling from the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. And that is exactly what Kevin McCarthy didn't want, because he recognizes that those moderate independent voters don't like it when members of Congress do that. So those are the factors that Joe Biden and his speechwriters were considering when engineering this section of the speech. They knew that by creating this contrast between Joe Biden's position of preserving Medicare and Social Security against the view of a small minority of the Republican Party who want to amend or do away with these policies, they would be able to create a very positive impression with independent and moderate voters who are going to be key in the 2024 election. Additionally, they were able to exploit the Republicans' tendency to react very viscerally and emotionally to being confronted on certain topics. And it really helped create another degree of contrast where Biden seemed in control, meanwhile the Republicans weren't able to control their emotions and had this outburst, which then led to some other outbursts later in the speech. And, this even went further when Biden was ready with his response, where he's like, I had heard that Republicans wanted to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, but I'm really glad that you guys have been convinced to join my side. Again, using that word conversion. I've converted you to my side. So Just a really, really nicely designed section of the speech that I think is going to be the one thing people are going to remember from this speech. That's going to carry on at least over a couple of news cycles, and we may see it again come 2024 in a couple political ads. But for that, we'll have to wait and see. Until then, think about it. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe to the channel and make sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post new videos. If you want to support me on my other social media platforms, all of the links you need will be in the video description below. If you have any questions about this video or another topic that you'd like me to discuss, leave me a comment and I'll do my best to get you an answer. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.